Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Been a while since I did a post with the video camera on myself. It's funny to think once upon a time this was the only way I knew how to make a video. But thanks to some other Truth Seekers, I learned how to record the screen. So, what I want to talk about in this post is my recent post on Christianity and also an experience I had this morning, which just couldn't come at a better time. A couple weeks back, I was building a fence, or I hadn't started the construction. I was digging out the old concrete blocks, and two missionaries from Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church, asked if they could help. And my first response was I smiled and I said, "Thank you." I said, "You guys look dressed really nice for this. I'd hate to get your clothes all dirty." And they said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. We can always wash our clothes. We're here to help people." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Typically I don't accept help from people, but I'll accept it if you guys really want to help me." And they said, "Thank you." They said, "We're here to do the work of Jesus Christ. This is what he would do." I said, "Awesome." I said, "I appreciate that." I said, honestly, I try to live a similar life. I try to do good things for people, much like how Jesus would do." And that is true. I say that sincerely. Just because I'm not on board with Christianity and saying that Jesus was the Son of God, it doesn't mean I'm against Jesus. I'm not opposed to Jesus. I think the message of Jesus is right. It's pretty much the way I live. I just don't think it's worth fighting with anybody over the things we fight over. I honestly don't think God would be so petty to banish me to hell or whatever the consequence is because I didn't accept Jesus as his one and only son. If I get to heaven's gate someday and I find out that I don't get in because I did everything else right, but I didn't do that, so be it. But there's so many people on this planet who I know, they think that all they have to do is believe and be true in heart in that belief, and that will be enough. And at the same time, if that's enough, well, that's really disappointing to me. I guess I would be disappointed in God in that regard. I would think that he would want more from us. Anyhow, since doing that, another set of Mormons have come to the house. They've been trying to recruit me, and it's not the first time they stopped by today. But normally, I just kind of agree with them and listen to them, and I don't want to be too confrontational. I'm just open to their opinions, and I like to hear the way people think. Well, today they were telling me that they'd really like me to come into their church so they could baptize me, and I told them, I said, I was raised a Lutheran, and I have been baptized. And what they said back is they said, "Well, that baptism doesn't count because it wasn't made under the terms of the Latter-day Saints." And I said to them, I said, "Well, why would God discern between a Lutheran baptism and a Mormon baptism?" And they said back to me that because God knows this is the right religion, the other religions are the works of man. And it's not that I entirely disagree with their statement. You see, they're acknowledging that other religious texts have been edited and corrupted by man, which I totally think has happened. But the piece I find so interesting is that they think their book is above all that. There's nothing wrong with their book. And of course, it's because they're born into it. So often when we're born into these things, inherently as humans, we trust what our parents tell us, what our elders tell us. And the more we hear of that growing up, the more real and truthful it becomes to us. So I said to them, I said, "Well, you know what? Let me tell you what I don't like about what you guys are saying. What you're saying is that almost everybody in this world has it wrong, except for the Mormons. And in a way, that's excluding. You're saying everybody's wrong but us." And I said, "Where does that work in the world?" Because I said, even me right now, my feelings are hurt a little bit by you guys saying that. And their response was, "Well, to make all this right, you just need to come join our church and be baptized by us." And I could have sat with them at my doorstep and we could have talked about this all day. The thing is you can tell that they're set in their ways, what they believe. And I don't want to say I'm set in my ways, but I need a really rational, reasonable, logical, thought out explanation to be persuaded. And what they were saying, it had logic and reason, but what they were doing was dismissing something without using that same level of scrutiny against their own belief system, which they just as easily could do to what they believe. And essentially, that's the same thing I see in all the Christians who are now responding to the post I just made. You know, they're going to their scripture to say, Zach, but read this scripture. It shows how you are wrong, or how you need to think this way, or you need to believe this, or you can only get into heaven if you believe this. And to me, all this shows is why we need to get away from this. You know, we weren't born into this world with books. Books aren't part of this natural world. Sure, we can use things from the natural world to make books, but they're not part of the natural world. We're born onto this planet that God created without the books. So what did God intend for all the human beings who lived before books and before the message of Jesus had been brought to earth? Why did God allow the planet to go on this way? Why weren't we born here with the book first? You know what I mean, truth seeker? To me, when you really think all this through, it doesn't add up. And again, I'll bring up the point that I made yesterday. Something I've always respected are the natives who were here before us. From what we're taught and what we learn about them, up here in the Pacific Northwest, here in Seattle, at Discovery Park, we have a native center, and you can go there every day of the week and you can listen to natives who try to keep in touch with their culture and their history. You can listen to them speak, tell their native tales, tell the stories of their values, tell the stories of their gods. It's a lot different from Christianity. Does it mean they're right? No. But it doesn't mean they're wrong either. And something I have trouble imagining is how these people who once lived here and had much respect for their environment and their natural earth and their fellow man, I have trouble believing that they're all in hell because they didn't believe the Holy Bible. Or, I mean, I shouldn't say they didn't believe it. They weren't even aware of it. It hadn't come over here. They hadn't heard the message of Jesus. That's from the other side of the ocean. The message of Jesus didn't start in North or South America. It came here. And the people who brought it here also brought a genocide here that killed the natives. So think about that, truth seeker. I have so much difficulty understanding how it could be that Christianity is the only way. There's just nothing about it that lines up for me to take me there. That said, you know, I do read the Bible. I haven't read all of it. I've read a lot of it. I do my best to understand it. Here's a King James version. I have multiple versions of the Bible. And I do think there really is a lot of truth within this book. And I do respect this book. It's just that I think it has been edited over time. It's been edited. It's been corrupted. And those edits and those corruptions, they've likely had a major impact. Imagine if one of those edits is the only thing you have to do is believe that Jesus was the Son of God. To me, that just disempowers us as human beings. How many people are really sitting on their hands? They got their hands and they've tucked them under their bottom, or they folded them in front of themselves, and they're limiting themselves to praying to Jesus and waiting for Jesus' return and waiting for Jesus' power to overcome all that's wrong with the world. All this time I've been saying, people, if you realize something's wrong with the world, you got to step up. You got to fight back. You got to do something positive. You got to contribute. So that's all I've been doing in this time, Truth Seeker, just finding ways I can contribute. Help people, help children, help elderly, help neighbors, help friends, help family. You know, try to educate, try to enlighten, try to get people to think. I think getting people to think is one of the greatest things we can be doing at this moment in time, because we've been told not to think in so many ways. And yes, I do partly blame the Bible for so many people not thinking, Because part of the Christian way is believe what's in here, the rest, it's not that important. Or if you believe anything contrary to this, you're doing wrong. You know, from the people on my blog, they're saying that to me, to the Mormons coming to my door saying if I'm not with them, everything else is wrong. You know, you just get this message from so many different people. How do you know who to trust? How do you know who to trust? And I'll tell you something true from my personal life, which probably also had an impact on the way I am. It was my mother who made me go to church. And it was my father who didn't really have much of an opinion about religion. You know, he's kind of like me. He just always thought you should just be a good person. And my dad, for the most part, he is a good person. You know, he doesn't want to make this world a better place. He doesn't think any of that's possible. He thinks we're born into what we're born into. But what we can do is be good and just treat people right. And from those two examples of parents, you know, my mom, she wanted me to go to church, but she didn't exactly teach me the best values as a human being. She tried her best, but she also taught me a lot of negative things along the way. I can't tell you that my dad taught me that many negative things, but he also never forced me to go to church, never forced me to go to confirmation. So, you know, just from even my own parents, I got to see, okay, here's the Christian half, the forcing, the telling you have to do it this way, versus, you know, my father who, he didn't give me any spiritual direction. He doesn't know what to believe himself. You know, he lived a rough life as a child, and, you know, you see this world and how awful it can be. You can understand why people aren't so sure that God is out there, you know, loving us, taking care of us, looking after us. I totally sympathize with that perspective. I don't have it all figured out myself, you know. I just try to make sense of things as I go, do my best, bring a positive message, help people out. I don't want to attack people because of their religion, but I did want to put my message out there about Christianity because it comes up naturally in this field. I realize that a lot of truth seekers out there are Christians. If you go to the web and you look at the majority of the research that's been done that I'm following in the footsteps of, you can see there's a heavy Christian emphasis. So I do recognize that within Christianity, there are a lot of people searching for truth and contributing positively to this field of research, which is so valuable and so needed. But at the same time, I have these thoughts in the back of my mind that these Christians are limiting themselves in understanding this research by being near and dear to their religious beliefs. So, you know, I see the challenge it is. I see the complex topic it is. And I just wanted to put one more message out there for a little bit more clarity. If you guys disagree with me, it's okay. You know, I respect everyone who disagrees with me. I just don't like condescending tones, attacking opinions, being told I'm this because of this. You know, it's just not an effective way. And that said, sometimes I'm guilty of doing the things I just complained about. So I apologize if I've ever done that to anybody who watches this video. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. So.